So, this happens, the big dirt nap, the final curtain call, the great cosmic log-off. For thousands of years, we've wondered what comes next. A grand reward? An eternal punishment? Or just a whole lot of nothing? Luckily for us, science has been hard at work, applying its famously romantic and hopeful lens to the question. Let's spoil the ending right now. The scientific evidence for life after death is, to put it mildly, underwhelming. But the journey to that conclusion is a fascinating tour of human hope, flawed research, and brains doing very weird things when they break. First, what is death? From a biological standpoint, it's pretty clear-cut. It's when the brain stops. For good. All the electricity that makes you, your thoughts, memories, your deep love of pizza just ceases. The concept of a soul or consciousness leaving the body is a lovely idea, but it has one tiny problem, a complete and utter lack of evidence. Despite early 20th century attempts to weigh the soul, which have been thoroughly debunked, no measurable thing seems to depart. Science hasn't found any mechanism or energy that could support consciousness outside the brain's hardware. This brings us to parapsychology, a field of research famous for its rigorous methods and definitive, repeatable results. Just kidding. For over a century, researchers have tried to find evidence for things like telepathy, clairvoyance, or communicating with the dead. Experiments like the Ganzfeld procedure, designed to test for ESP, have produced, well, a lot of arguments about statistics. Initial promising results almost always disappear when other, less hopeful scientists try to replicate them. As for mediums, studies have shown they are masters of cold reading, a technique of asking vague questions and fishing for hits. Shocking, I know. The problem is always the same. The more you control for fraud, error, and wishful thinking, the more the phenomenon vanishes. So, direct proof of spirits? The score remains science, 1, spooky stories, 0. But what about near-death experiences? The tunnels of light? The feeling of peace? The life review? Millions have reported these profound experiences. Surely this is proof of consciousness leaving the body? Well, there's another explanation. It's your brain. Your brain is dying and it's getting weird. The tunnel of light is consistent with what we know about cerebral hypoxia, or lack of oxygen to the brain. The profound sense of peace and well-being? Your brain is likely flooding itself with endorphins, its native painkillers, as a last-ditch response to trauma. The life review could be caused by seizure-like activity in the temporal lobe, where memories are processed. Out-of-body experiences can be induced by stimulating the temporal-parietal junction, disrupting the brain's sense of where the self is located. So, NDEs aren't a glimpse of the beyond. They're a wild, predictable, and purely physiological ride created by a failing brain. The details of the visions, like meeting specific religious figures or deceased relatives, are shaped by the person's culture and expectations. It's a testament not to the afterlife, but to how similarly our brains are wired and how similarly they break down. Think of it as the brain's final, spectacular fireworks show before the power goes out for good. While deeply meaningful to the person, NDEs don't provide objective evidence for a reality outside the brain. So, ghosts are out. NDEs are a brain thing. Is there any hope left for cheating death? Enter our old friend from the weirdest corner of physics, quantum immortality. This isn't spirituality. It's a bizarre, unsettling, and highly speculative consequence of the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. The idea, in a nutshell, is this: if every quantum event creates branching universes for every possible outcome, then there's always a universe where you survive. Since you can't experience being dead, your consciousness will only ever perceive the timeline where you don't die. This doesn't mean you're invulnerable. It means you're forced to follow the path of improbable survival, no matter how painful it gets. And for every you that survives, a near infinity of yous die. They're just as real. So it's not great news for, well, almost all of you. So is it true? Almost certainly not. Many worlds is just one interpretation and we can't test it. It's philosophical fun, not physics. It's a neat idea if you're desperate, but it's not exactly evidence of a glorious afterlife, more like a loophole for a cursed endless existence. So where does that leave us? We've explored the supernatural, the neurological, and the bizarrely quantum. And every time, we come back to the same, simple, and frankly, elegant biological conclusion. Consciousness ends because the brain that creates it stops working. The body breaks down and becomes part of the universe again. The lights go out and they don't come back on. There is no afters, there's just the before for everyone else. It's not a comforting thought perhaps, but it is consistent with everything we know about physics, chemistry, and biology. Maybe the magic isn't in living forever. Maybe it's in the staggering improbability of being alive at all, right here, right now. The lack of an afterlife doesn't make life meaningless, it makes it precious. This is likely the one and only existence your consciousness will ever have. So, are you bummed out? Or do you find the finality of it all motivating? The universe doesn't seem to care much for our feelings. It just follows its own rules, beautifully and brutally. We invented the afterlife to cope with the terror of death, and that's a very human, very understandable thing to do. But the truth, as far as we can tell, is quieter, simpler, and much, much more final. Confirmation bias is a powerful force. We see ghosts because we want to see ghosts. We interpret random noises as whispers from the beyond. We see faces in the static. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, and they'd rather invent a false pattern than accept chaos. When faced with two explanations, the simpler one is usually the correct one. And the brain did it is always simpler than the laws of physics were temporarily suspended. The burden of proof lies with those making the extraordinary claim, and the soul is real is about as extraordinary as it gets. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, not just spooky stories your aunt told you. So far, that evidence has been, well, absent. From EVP to orb photography, every piece of proof has a much more likely and much more boring natural explanation. It's not a spirit portal, it's dust, or an insect, or lens flare. Science can't work with feelings or personal experiences. It requires objective, repeatable, verifiable data. If a soul exists, what is it made of? How does it interact with the world? Why can't we detect it? These are not trivial questions. They point to the deep incompatibility between the concept of a soul and the laws of physics as we know them. Until we have a better theory of consciousness itself, speculating about its survival after death is getting way ahead of ourselves. Feeling thoroughly demystified? Good. That's what we do here at Capybrain. We take the universe's biggest, most hopeful questions and answer them with cold, hard, and often disappointing facts. Subscribe for more reality checks. The fact that consciousness is a product of the brain doesn't make it less wonderful. It makes it more incredible. A lump of fatty tissue, through the blind process of evolution, learned to contemplate the universe. That's the real miracle. We don't need to invent supernatural stories to find awe and wonder. It's right here in the real world. Accepting the finality of death can be difficult, but it can also be liberating. It focuses our attention on the here and now, on making this life meaningful and happy for ourselves and for others. The clock is ticking. This isn't a dress rehearsal. Our immortality isn't supernatural. It's in our children, our ideas, our art, and the impact we have on the world. That's the only kind of afterlife that has any evidence to support it. So, after all that, the scientific consensus is clear. Life is a state of matter, and like all states, it is temporary. Enjoy your tea. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy being made of atoms that can do things. Because, as far as the evidence shows, this is all you get. Perhaps the most important question isn't what happens after we die, but what do we do before we die? From quantum mechanics to the evolution of consciousness, the real universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any story we could make up. You are a temporary arrangement of stardust that has woken up. Don't waste it worrying about ghosts. The story of life is far stranger and more vast than the story of death. Ultimately, the search for an afterlife is a search for comfort in the face of the terrifying unknown. Science isn't in the business of providing comfort. It's in the business of finding out what's true. And what seems to be true is that the universe is governed by impersonal, physical laws. There is no evidence for a non-physical component to our existence. We are the machine. The dead live on in our memories, in the world they helped shape, and in the DNA they pass down. This is a tangible, scientifically verifiable form of immortality. As we understand more about the brain and the universe, the gaps where we used to place gods and ghosts get smaller and smaller. The unknown is not something to be feared or filled with speculation. It's something to be investigated. And so far, that investigation has yielded 0 ghosts, 0 spirits, and 0 evidence of a life beyond the grave. The number is not ambiguous, it's 0. Perhaps we should spend less time worrying about preserving consciousness and more time celebrating what it can do. The evidence points to an inescapable conclusion: you are your brain. If your soul was separate, why would a physical injury to the brain change who you are? All the data we have tells us that the software of your consciousness cannot run without the hardware of your brain. When the hardware is destroyed, the software stops. It doesn't magically upload to the cloud. This isn't a pessimistic view. It's a realistic one, grounded in centuries of methodical, painstaking research. Every culture has invented a story. We're just the first to have the tools to check if the stories are true. And the results are in, they're not. The world is what it is. Our job is to understand it, not to invent a more comforting version. This one life, on this one planet, is the most amazing thing we know of. And that should be more than enough. The core of the issue is our inability to imagine non-existence. We've only ever known consciousness, so we assume it must be the default state of the universe. But all evidence suggests the opposite. The default state is non-life, non-consciousness. Life is the startling, temporary exception, not the rule. There is no reason to believe death is an experience at all. It is the end of experience. You weren't bothered by your non-existence for the 13.8 billion years before you were born. Why would you be bothered by it after you're gone? This thought experiment highlights the strength of the scientific method. It follows evidence, not hope. Does our understanding change reality? No, but it changes us. We don't have all the answers, but the quest for them is one of the most exciting adventures in all of science. It transforms the universe from a single, scary story into an infinite library of real phenomena to be understood. From your point of view, your story's final chapter will be written. and then the book will close. A universe of finite possibilities, and a consciousness destined to experience just one of them. A truly wild ride. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the most final level of reality. Your curiosity makes these explorations necessary. If you enjoyed having your comforting beliefs dismantled by evidence, consider subscribing to our channel, Capybrain, for more adventures into the biggest questions of science. Don't forget to ring the bell to be notified every time we bring a little more reality into your life. From all of us here at Capybrain, stay curious and stay rational. Does the truths make you feel better or worse? Let us know in the comments. Our reality seems stable and singular because, as far as we can tell, it is. Everyday life is filled with moments of chance and danger, but they play out in one single unforgiving universe. Science doesn't claim to have all the answers, but it's honest about what it doesn't know. For science, 1,000 stories are worthless against a single, repeatable, verifiable fact. The line to the beyond has never been connected. There's no one on the other end. The universe doesn't seem to create less real copies. It just has one, very real original. It's a staggering, almost spiritual concept born from the cold, hard process of observation and experimentation. Unlocking the secrets of the world may mean accepting a reality less magical, but far more interesting than our senses suggest. One action, one outcome. That is the promise of causality. Until an experiment can show otherwise, the choice is not a matter of taste, it's a matter of evidence. We live our lives in the small, illuminated circle of what we know. The rest is not for making up stories, but for exploration. Thanks for watching. You might be unkillable, impossible to delete out of existence. If one of the most exciting ideas about physics, quantum immortality, is true, to test this idea, we'll put a nuclear bomb in your living room, but more on that later. This is real science happening around one of the most successful theories of physics. To understand why, we need to tell you a story. The story of the smallest parts of the universe. With everyday objects, things make sense. If you kick a marble 10 times with the same force, it always lands in the same spot. But if you kick an electron 10 times in exactly the same way, it shows up in different places. On the most fundamental level of reality, randomness is the rule. The story that solves this is called quantum mechanics. Simplified, it goes something like this. A particle isn't a tiny marble, but a diffuse thing we call a wave. But it's not a wave of matter or energy, but a wave of probability. What does that even mean? Quantum mechanics doesn't really tell us what the electron is. It only tells us how this entity behaves on average. According to one interpretation, when we measure the particle, this wave of possibilities collapses into a single, real outcome. But what this collapse really is, and what the wave is about, is the source of a huge debate. One school of thought we'll call the linguists says the math is just a tool, a grammar for the universe. It's not a story about reality, it just lets us predict experiments. There's no point asking what it means. But another school, the literary critics, says, no, read between the lines. There's a hidden meaning here. They believe quantum mechanics is a story about reality, and the story is that the universe is constantly splitting. In the many worlds interpretation, the wave function never collapses. All possible outcomes happen. Each outcome happens in its own new, separate world, and you, the observer, split along with it. Every quantum process creates new worlds, resulting in a constantly branching, infinitely complex multiverse. These worlds are all equally real, but they are invisible to each other and cannot interact. This brings us to the ultimate experiment. A device measures a quantum particle. If the particle is spin up, you live. If it's spin down, the bomb detonates. According to many worlds, the universe splits. In one world, you survive. In the other, you are instantly vaporized. Here's the crucial part. Your consciousness, your continuous stream of experience, cannot continue in the world where you die. You can only experience the timeline where, against the odds, you survive. No matter how many times you run the experiment, from your point of view, you will always find yourself in the branch where you live. You would witness an impossible streak of good luck, eventually concluding that you must be immortal. This is quantum immortality. Not that you don't die, but that your consciousness will never experience dying. This applies to any event that has a chance of killing you. A car crash, a disease, a falling washing machine. But there's a catch. Quantum immortality doesn't protect you from aging, or from non-lethal injuries. Your consciousness would be forced down the path of improbable survival, no matter how painful or decrepit that existence becomes. And remember, for every version of you that survives, countless versions die. They are just as real as you are. So is it really you that is immortal? Or just one lucky copy out of a near infinity of unlucky ones? It's crucial to remember this is a thought experiment, not a life hack. The vast majority of yous would just die. The biggest problem is that we can never test it. We can't peek into the other worlds to confirm they exist. So, quantum immortality remains a fascinating, deeply unsettling, and unprovable consequence of one possible interpretation of reality. It forces us to question what the self even is. If there are countless versions of you, which one is the real one? Whether it's true or not, it reveals the profound weirdness hiding just beneath the surface of our reality. The ultimate experiment isn't just a party trick. It's a doorway to questioning the very fabric of existence. At the heart of it all is the wave function, a mathematical description of all that could be. Whether that potential collapses into one reality, or blossoms into all of them, is one of the deepest questions in science. Every moment, every quantum jiggle in the universe, could be a branching point. The very act of observation seems to be tangled up with the creation of reality itself. In the many worlds view, you don't just observe the split, you are the split. An infinity of yourselves living out every possible version of your life. And yet, to the one who survives, the world would look perfectly normal. The only clue would be your own impossible existence. Quantum immortality is less about physics and more about philosophy. What is consciousness and what is reality? Is you the sum of all your possible selves, or only the one you happen to be experiencing right now? Think about it. In another world, you made a different choice this morning, and that world is just as real as this one. Your life is a single path through an infinite garden of forking paths. From the outside, your odds are terrible. From the inside, your odds are always 100%. Consciousness acts like a filter, only allowing you to perceive the unbroken chain of your own existence. This doesn't mean you can fly, it just means that in the unlikely event you survive the fall, that's the only reality you'd know. You would become a living embodiment of luck, a statistical anomaly walking the earth. The probability of any single timeline is vanishingly small, yet you are on one. The many worlds interpretation suggests that all the lottery balls are drawn, each creating its own reality. It's a humbling thought. You are just one leaf on an infinite tree. This is where science borders on the metaphysical, challenging our deepest assumptions. Is consciousness fundamental to this process, or just a passenger along for the ride? We have no way of knowing for sure. We are limited to our own single, subjective timeline. From your perspective, the movie of your life will never cut to black. The credits will never roll. A strange comfort or a terrifying curse. The universe doesn't seem to offer an opinion, it simply presents the possibilities, and leaves you to exist in the one you're in. If you find these mind-bending ideas as fascinating as we do, you're in the right place. Here at Capybrain, we dive into the deepest and weirdest questions the universe has to offer. Subscribe to our channel to join our explorations into the nature of reality, consciousness, and everything in between. And ring the bell so you never miss a chance to question everything you thought you knew. The math of quantum mechanics works perfectly, but the story it tells about our world is still up for debate. The many worlds view is elegant and avoids the messy collapse problem, but at the cost of an absurdly large number of unseen universes. The Copenhagen view is simpler but leaves us with the mystery of what measurement is and why it has such a special power over reality. Quantum immortality lives on this razor's edge between established science and profound philosophical speculation. From the inside, your reality is edited to be a story of continuous survival. But this special treatment only applies to the you that is currently you. All the others are out of luck. It paints a lonely picture of the far future, a single consciousness surviving against all odds, floating alone in an empty universe. So what does this mean for your future? Absolutely nothing you can use. It's a reminder that the world is not as simple as it seems. Our classical intuition breaks down at the fundamental level. You are a quantum being, living in a quantum world, whether you realize it or not. And the story of that world is far stranger and more vast than we could ever have imagined. Every quantum event, from a particle decaying in a star to a neuron firing in your brain, splits reality. This isn't a metaphor. According to MWI, these worlds are physically real. You are just one of these versions, forever sealed within your own timeline. So, in our experiment, both outcomes happen. The bomb detonates and the bomb doesn't. The version of you in the world where the bomb goes off ceases to exist. Its story ends. But the version of you in the world where it doesn't just keeps on living. Its story continues. Since your consciousness is defined by this continuity, you will only ever perceive the chain of events where you didn't die. An outside observer would almost certainly see you die on the first or second try. But you are not an outside observer of your own life. You are the protagonist of your own story, and for the protagonist, the story never ends. This doesn't grant you superpowers. It's a passive, subjective immortality born from infinite chances and the single perspective of your consciousness. It forces a strange question. What makes you so special compared to the other versions that perish? The answer, according to the theory, is nothing. It's simply that your consciousness is, by definition, on the surviving path. You're not choosing the path. The path is simply the one where you continue to exist. Even dying of old age becomes a probabilistic event. There's always a tiny quantum chance of your cells not failing, but we can't prove it. The theory is designed in such a way that its most dramatic claim, the existence of other worlds, is forever beyond our reach. The branches of the multiverse, once split, are causally disconnected. Science relies on testable predictions. Many worlds offers no predictions that could distinguish it from the Copenhagen interpretation, so it remains a philosophical preference, not a scientific certainty. But what a preference it is! It suggests a reality more vast and strange than we can possibly comprehend. A universe where every possibility is explored and every story is told. The core of the paradox is your own subjective experience. You can't experience not existing. Therefore, your experience must be one of continued existence. In a single universe model, if the odds are against you, you simply die. The end. In the many-worlds model, there is always another universe for your consciousness to land in. Your journey is paved with the ghosts of your other selves. It's a strange kind of survival, where the survivor is defined only by the fact that they are the one left to observe. This thought experiment highlights the tension between the mathematical beauty of quantum theory and our struggle to interpret it. Does reality split because of us? Or do we simply follow one path through a pre-existing branching reality? We don't know, but the quest to find out is one of the most exciting adventures in all of science. It transforms the universe from a single, lonely stage into an infinite library of all possible stories. And from your point of view, your story's final chapter may never be written. A universe of infinite possibilities, and a consciousness destined to surf the wave of survival. A truly wild idea. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the deepest levels of reality. Your curiosity makes these explorations possible. If you enjoyed pondering your own potential immortality, consider subscribing to our channel, Capybrain, for more adventures into the biggest questions of science. Don't forget to ring the bell to be notified every time we split the universe with a new video. From all of us here at Capybrain, stay curious. Which interpretation do you prefer? Let us know in the comments. Our reality seems stable and singular only because our consciousness experiences it that way. Everyday life is filled with these tiny, unnoticed quantum splits, constantly creating new branches of reality. The theory is a logical extension of quantum mechanics equations, if you take them literally. For many physicists, the sheer weirdness is a small price to pay for a theory that might perfectly describe the universe without any extra rules. You can never call your other selves to see how they're doing. The separation is absolute. The universe doesn't create less real copies. Each new world is as real as the one that spawned it. It's a staggering, almost spiritual concept born from the cold, hard math of physics. Unlocking the secrets of the quantum world may mean accepting a reality far grander than our senses suggest. One action, infinite outcomes, all of them real. That is the promise of many worlds. Until an experiment can tell them apart, the choice remains a matter of scientific taste. We live our lives in the small, illuminated circle of what we know, while the true nature of reality may be hiding in the dark. Thanks for watching.